It's the Christmas shopping season in London, and the rush hour is in full swing. Commuters and shoppers stream through King's Cross, the city's busiest rail interchange. Suddenly, a deadly wall of flame roars through the packed station. It kills 31 people. The world's oldest subway system suffers the deadliest fire in its history. Now, using advanced computer simulations, we reveal exactly what caused the tragedy. Disasters don't just happen. They're a chain of critical events. Unravel the clues and count down those final seconds from disaster. Europe, England, London. King's Cross Station, Britain's busiest rail hub. It connects overground trains from the north with the city's 418 kilometres of subway network, affectionately known to Londoners as the Tube. 5 tube lines serve 8 platforms at King's Cross. The deepest is 27 metres underground. 250,000 passengers surge through the station's subterranean labyrinth of passages every day. Wednesday, November 18th, 1987. 7:18 p.m. It's still rush hour and the city centre is busier than ever as the Christmas shopping season gets into gear. For one man, the buzz and bustle of London is a new experience. 20-year-old Damon Brodie left his home in Scotland just 5 days ago to start a new IT job and a new life in the big city. He can't believe his luck.
I always wanted to live in London. I mean, for somebody at 20 years old, it was a dream come true.
Brodie is eager to soak up London sights. Tonight he's off to visit the famous Christmas lights in Regent Street. A trip that will take him on the Tube. But Londoners know that Christmas in the capital isn't all peace and goodwill. Four years ago, Irish terror group the IRA bombed the Harrods department store. The blast, 8 days before Christmas, killed 6 people. Now intelligence experts fear that the IRA may once again target London. But nobody knows where the terrorists might strike. "7:25 p.m. At King's Cross, 27 metres underground, passengers stream off tube trains and onto escalators, taking them up to the ticket hall and the streets of London. On the Piccadilly line escalator, several commuters spot someone in a blue boiler suit descending into a manhole nearby. Workmen are a familiar sight on the wooden escalators of the aging, dilapidated tube system. 2 minutes later, electronics engineer Philip Squire joins the up escalator. He heads up towards the street, obeying tube etiquette by standing on the right-hand side.
As I was standing there, I was just looking around as you do, and I happened to look down.
He catches sight of something odd. A light beneath the wooden steps.
I could see this very bright glow, very intense.
When he reaches the top, he seeks out a London Underground worker, and they look back to the spot halfway down the escalator where Squire saw the glow. But there's no sign of it.
I felt a bit silly because you couldn't see anything. So to be honest, I felt stupid.
Philip Squire goes on his way, embarrassed to have caused a fuss. "7:30 p.m. A couple of minutes later, a man hits the emergency stop button on the Piccadilly line escalator. A British transport policeman on routine patrol goes to investigate. He sees a small flame on one of the wooden steps. It's not a huge surprise. Fires are a fact of life on the aging infrastructure of the tube. There have been over 400 in the previous 3 decades. The policeman heads back up to the ticket hall where he can call the London Fire Brigade on his radio. Down below, staff follow routine practice, taping off the Piccadilly line escalator to divert passengers away from the tiny fire. 7:39. 9 minutes after the fire alert, the police decide they should evacuate the station as a precaution. 3 kilometers away, in the city's Soho district, the firefighters of Red Watch respond to the call and head for King's Cross. Soho is the busiest fire station in London. Many of the men have fought hundreds of blazes. 7:43. Red Watch arrive at the King's Cross ticket hall. The ranking officer is 45-year-old Fire Chief Colin Townsley. Townsley is married with 2 daughters and has served 23 years in the London Fire Brigade. He dreams of retiring early and buying a rural smallholding in France. Townsley is a dedicated and demanding leader who commands the respect and loyalty of his men. One of them is Robert Moulton, who served with the man he calls the Governor for 4 years. Townsley takes Moulton with him to assess the state of the fire. The blaze is now about the size of a campfire, but neither man is worried. "16 meters below, British Transport Police continue to clear hundreds of passengers from the station. One of the police officers is 27-year-old Richard Kukielka. After 5 years in the job, evacuation procedures are second nature.
It was just a matter of getting the people that were within the station out of the station.
Kukielka directs passengers onto the Victoria Line escalator, the only one still operating. It runs parallel to the Piccadilly Line escalator and emerges in the same place. The main ticket hall just below street level. Heading up to the ticket hall with the throng is London newcomer Damon Brodie. He was on his way to see the Christmas lights, but his trip has just been cancelled.
Well, there was no panic, there was no rushing, there was no it was just normal.
7:44 p.m. The fire has been burning on the wooden steps for almost 15 minutes, and the flames are now around 1.5 meters high. The blaze is 20 meters from police officer Kukielka at the bottom of the Victoria Line escalator. Firefighting Chief Colin Townsley is in the ticket hall. Sightseer Damon Brodie is travelling up the adjacent Victoria Line escalator. Brodie reaches the top of the escalator and steps into the ticket hall. Moments later, a huge jet of fire erupts.
It was like an explosion happening in slow motion.
Damon Brodie takes a full hit. The jet of flame ignites his legs and lower body.
My life sort of ended at that point.
In London's King's Cross station, a small blaze has suddenly erupted into a ferocious inferno, spewing out fire like a flamethrower, engulfing dozens of commuters in a ball of fire. One of them is 23-year-old sightseer Damon Brodie.
I knew that particularly the back of me was on fire quite badly and around my legs area.
Now, thick black smoke pours out of the station exits into the street above. Here, firefighter Robert Moulton is getting a hose ready to deal with what was, just minutes before, a tiny escalator fire.
There was a terrific roar. I heard this horrible scream that seemed to go on for ages.
He's horrified. He knows the ticket hall was full of people moments before, among them his boss, Fire Chief Colin Townsley. News crews capture the scene as Moulton and his fellow firefighters grab oxygen sets. Ignoring the danger, they descend into the burning ticket hall to search for survivors.
Our only thought was just to try and fight our way down there, get to the fire and see if we can drag anyone out.
Caught in the inferno, Damon Brodie rolls over and over trying to put the flames out. Eventually, he succeeds. He's badly burnt, but now faces a new danger. Dense, choking smoke.
It was absolutely red hot, and I could feel it burning my throat and lungs.
Moments after the fire erupted, from the bottom of the Victoria Line escalator, young police officer Richard Kukielka can see a horrifying sight.
When I looked up the escalators, all I could see was darkness.
He realizes that when he sent passengers up the escalator, he unwittingly sent many of them straight into an inferno. But the blazing ticket hall is the only way out to the streets. Thinking fast, police and station staff flag down passing trains and bundle stranded passengers out of danger. But firefighter Robert Moulton battles on through the ticket hall, searching for survivors, including his boss, Colin Townsley. He's astonished by the ferocity of the fire.
It was tremendously hot, searingly hot. You couldn't believe it.
Then, as he shines his torch through the smoke, he sees something. It's a white helmet. His heart sinks. He knows white helmets are only worn by fire chiefs.
Put my face mask right up against the helmet and shone me torch on it, and I could see it was white, and I just knew it was Colin.
His boss isn't moving. And even if he's alive, Moulton knows Townsley's lungs will be full of toxic smoke. He has to get him into the open air, and quickly. Deep underground, the police think they've got everyone out. But then Kukielka and his colleague find a passenger slumped at the bottom of the escalators.
His hair was burnt, and his head was burnt, and his hands were badly burnt. He was in a lot of pain. He was screaming and shouting, and he was in a lot of pain.
The man needs urgent medical attention, but he's too badly burnt to evacuate by train. The young policeman fears they're trapped. Then he remembers there is another way out up to the street. They drag the man to some metal gates leading to the exit. But when they reach the gates, they discover, to their horror, that somebody has locked them.
Open the gates! Hello!
The only decision we could make then was to actually try and kick the iron gates down.
He yanks frantically on the gates, but they won't budge. The young policeman can't radio for help, as his walkie-talkie won't work underground. It's a crushing moment. And the fumes from the fire raging above are starting to spread throughout the station.
Our eyes were hurting and our chest were hurting, and we couldn't breathe properly.
Up in the blazing ticket hall, Moulton is dragging Fire Chief Townsley out of the inferno. What he doesn't know is that only meters away, sightseer Damon Brodie is fighting for his life. His lungs are screaming, and he desperately wants to sleep.
I thought, no, I'll just go to sleep now, and hopefully when I wake up, everything will be over.
Dozens of people in the blazing ticket hall are succumbing to deadly toxic fumes. But in the streets above, news crews capture a desperate scene. Firefighters staggering out, beaten back by the intense heat and flames. These men know that any hope of saving the people trapped just 5 meters below is disappearing fast. "7:52 p.m. 7 minutes since a fire engulfed London's King's Cross station, trapping commuters below ground. In the streets above the station, there's a scene of complete chaos. Firefighter Robert Moulton frantically gives his boss Colin Townsley mouth-to-mouth to get life-saving oxygen into his lungs.
The very first time I blew breath into him, he sort of coughed. So I said, "This looks good." And we, really set to.
Encouraged by the signs of life, Moulton redoubles his efforts. Then paramedics rush his boss to hospital. "16 meters underground, in one of the station's labyrinth of passages, 27-year-old policeman Richard Kukielka is trying to take a badly injured passenger to safety before the fire spreads further. But he's trapped behind a locked gate, and whatever he tries, the gate just won't budge. Then a cleaner appears on the other side. The cleaner had no clue that an inferno was raging above, but now he proves a lifesaver. He has a key to the exit. 32 minutes after the fire erupted, Kukielka rushes the wounded man out of the station to safety. Up in the blazing ticket hall, several meters from the escalator, the last of sightseer Damon Brodie's strength is slipping away. Then, the 20-year-old is gripped by a sense of injustice.
I don't think this is right. I don't mind dying again in a week. I don't mind it happening in any other way, but I just don't want it to be here and now.
Summoning up the last of his strength, he starts to crawl blindly through the smoke, desperately searching for some way out. The ground is fiercely hot, making every meter he crawls agony. Then, through the smoke, Brodie makes out a stairway. He begins to struggle upwards, inch by inch. Suddenly, through the gloom, he sees a hand reaching towards him. A stranger bends down and starts to haul Brodie up the stairs, out of the nightmare.
When I got up to the top of the stairs, it was amazing.
At King's Cross, the firefighters have controlled the blaze enough to venture below. But in the wrecked ticket hall, all they recover is dead bodies. Then Robert Moulton and his fellow firefighters hear the terrible news. Their boss, Fire Chief Colin Townsley, has died at the hospital of smoke inhalation.
Obviously, we're all very shocked and sorry, and it was a bit numbing, really.
It's not until 6 hours later, at 1:46 the next morning, that the fire is finally contained. The inferno has killed 31 people and seriously injured another 20.
Good afternoon. The cause of Wednesday night's fire at King's Cross Underground Station is still not known. The youngest victim was only 7 years old.
Relatives of the victims and survivors try to come to terms with their traumatic experiences. Amongst them, 32-year-old Steve Hansen.
I've got 3 children and I've got a lovely wife. And my youngest child's only 6 weeks old, and that's what kept me going. I have to live for them.
tragedy horrifies the nation. Uniting royalty and the British public in grief. British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher visits the site and is visibly shocked by the devastation. But the causes of the disaster are a complete mystery. More than 2 million people use London's tube system every day. If the Prime Minister shuts it down, London would grind to a halt. Thatcher sets up an inquiry and orders it to find answers. What triggered the blaze? And what transformed a minor fire into a deadly jet of flame in seconds? Now, by rewinding the events of that fateful day, and by going deep into the investigation, we can reveal what really happened in the King's Cross Inferno. Advanced computer simulation will take us where no camera can go, into the heart of the disaster zone. The government appoints an investigation team of 21 experts from 5 different agencies. Engineer David Shillito is one of the lead investigators. Shillito has been an international expert in major fire disasters for 34 years. In the burnt-out shell of King's Cross, Shillito looks for clues to the fire's spread.
The burning patterns were fundamentally important. It was the shapes of the burning on the escalator, the way the smoke had blackened the underground structures. It was a sudden bursting forth of a major fire.
It's immediately clear to him that this was no ordinary fire. But he needs more evidence about how it behaved. Within hours, police officers start to track down anyone who might have witnessed the blaze. They interview hundreds of people. Several describe how a jet of flame shot up the escalator and into the ticket hall like a blowtorch or a flamethrower.
1 minute it was a non-emergency situation, and the next minute it was a black inferno of hell.
The sheer explosive force of the inferno suggests a disturbing possibility. A terrorist attack. The IRA has bombed Londoners before. Is this the start of an horrific new chapter in its terror campaign? Targeting travellers on London's tube? Within hours of the disaster, police officers make a chilling find. 3 eyewitnesses report seeing a man in a blue boiler suit minutes before the blaze. He was by the Piccadilly line escalator where the fire started. 2 of them saw him go down a nearby manhole. Where does that lead? Tube managers tell police that the conduit goes straight to the void underneath the escalator. But none of the workers on duty that day fits the description of the mystery man. Was he an IRA terrorist planting an explosive device under the escalator? The investigation team drafts in David Halliday, a forensic scientist who specializes in investigating suspicious blazes. In the sealed-off station, technicians strip down and examine the wreckage of the burnt-out escalator for clues. Halfway down the escalator, they find the classic pattern of scorching that indicates the fire's origin point. It's underneath the escalator, close to the running track. But they cannot find a bomb crater here, or anywhere on the escalator. Nor is the metalwork shattered, a telltale sign of an explosion.
All of the steelwork and the structure of the escalator was in fact generally intact. Where it had distorted, it was clear that it had distorted because of heat, not an explosion.
The investigation team rules out a bomb as the origin of the King's Cross fire. But they are still suspicious. The speed of the fire's spread could be explained by another criminal act: arson. Now Halliday is on the hunt for traces of an accelerant, like petrol, the calling card of the arsonist. They meticulously examine the area around the fire's origin point. But there's no hint of the telltale odor an accelerant invariably leaves. And Halliday can see that the fire started in a highly inaccessible spot.
It would be quite difficult to apply a flame while the escalator wheels were moving past the trackway.
The man in the blue boiler suit remains an unsolved mystery. It's clear he's a case of mistaken identity. 2 days after the blaze, the investigation team declares the arson theory a dead end.
Investigators still don't know what caused the fire, but today they did rule out the possibility of arson. What no one can fully understand yet is the speed with which a small fire turned into an intense fireball.
If this was an accidental fire, it's even harder to explain how it suddenly turned into a freakish jet of flame. And investigators still have to establish exactly how it started. With nothing else to go on, they probe the unburned area under the escalator for clues. Here, they make a disturbing find. The wooden skirting boards all along the 42-meter escalator are pocked with scorch marks. Not one or two, but 18 of them.
I concluded they were actually evidence of old fires on the escalator.
It's a shocking development. Something is triggering numerous small fires on the escalator, and one of them became the King's Cross blaze. There are scores of wooden escalators on London's tube system. Until investigators trace the cause of the fires, it may only be a matter of time before Londoners face another horrific inferno. Forensic scientists investigating London Underground's deadliest ever fire have made a disturbing discovery. Evidence of 18 old, undetected fires under the escalator at the heart of the disaster. But investigators have spotted something curious. Nearly all the scorch marks from these small fires are sited beneath the escalator's right-hand side. It's a crucial lead. The rule of etiquette on the tube is that passengers walk up the left-hand side of the escalators and stand on the right. One thing it's easier to do while standing is lighting a cigarette. Could smokers, carelessly discarding matches, be accidentally starting fires under the escalator? But smoking has been banned on the tube for over 2 years. It may be implicated in the old fires, but can it really be the cause of the recent disaster? David Shillito and the team check with station staff and make a discovery.
People were smoking with impunity in the station. The smoking ban was totally ineffective.
The ban is not strictly enforced. The prime suspect for the King's Cross fire is now a careless smoker discarding a still burning match. But something made this fire take hold when all the others harmlessly burnt out. Forensic scientist David Halliday believes the fire started close to the escalator's running track. But all its component parts are made of metal. There's nothing here to fuel a fire. He examines an undamaged section of track and finds it has a thick coating of lubricating grease. He knows that grease alone is hard to ignite. But when he examines it more closely, he finds it studded with discarded tickets, sweet wrappers, fluff from clothing, human hair, and rat fur. It's clear that the running tracks haven't been properly cleaned since they were built at the start of the Second World War. Could 4 decades of garbage have created a flammable mixture? Back in the police forensic laboratory, Halliday prepares a simple test on the grease and garbage mix. He applies a naked flame to replicate the effect of a burning match. The dirty grease immediately catches fire.
I had found the one thing at the scene that might be capable of being ignited by a flame, and the test had confirmed that it was ignited by a flame.
The tests reveal that as the flammable debris burns, it heats the grease in the mix to a point where it too ignites. It's a startling finding. It appears that a horrifying fire risk lurks beneath the scores of wooden escalators on London's tube network. But igniting the dirty grease with a Bunsen burner in a laboratory doesn't conclusively prove that a dropped match could start a fire in the real world. David Shillito and the investigation team realize the only way to find out for sure is to try to recreate the chain of events at King's Cross Station. 51 days after the disaster, at 2 in the morning, the team gathers in the eerie setting of the gutted Piccadilly line escalator. This original footage captures their audacious experiment. London firefighters stand by to contain any blaze. Then, on its undamaged lower half, one of the team drops a lighted match through the 1 centimeter gap between step and sidewall.
3, 2, 1, now.
The investigators hold their breath. Will the flame ignite the dirt-filled grease? They may have to drop dozens of matches before they find out the truth. Incredibly, the very first match dropped ignites the grease and detritus mix. After 1 minute and 55 seconds, the investigators can see the tiny glow through the gaps between the steps.
About a metre of flame.
In just under 7 minutes, flames start to lick up through the wooden steps.
Coming through onto the steps. It's now starting to come through on the steps. Do you want to stop this now? No, not yet.
The experiment is working with a vengeance. Shillito and the team face a dangerous dilemma. They're desperate to see how the fire behaves, but there's a risk the fire might suddenly roar out of control, just like it did in the disaster.
Are you getting unhappy about this yet?
After losing a colleague to the disaster, the firefighters are all too aware of the risks.
We're getting close to the time when we should withdraw.
High pressure reel down here, please. We're going to put the hose down now.
The fire grew, and it continued to grow, until, of course, the fire brigade told us to put it out.
It's a huge step forward. The investigators are now convinced that the King's Cross fire was started by a discarded match igniting dirt-clogged grease. But to prevent a repeat of the disaster, they still have to solve its most fundamental mystery. What transformed the small blaze into a roaring jet of flame in a matter of seconds? Investigators are certain that a small amount of lubricating grease would not be capable of creating such a freakish phenomenon, because it burns too slowly. The hunt for the missing factor intensifies. Now investigators consider a theory being aired in the news media. It suggests that a phenomenon unique to underground stations could be to blame. When a train approaches an underground platform, it pushes a rush of air ahead of it. It's called the piston effect, and it helps keep the tube system ventilated. Did a high-speed rush of air act like a set of giant bellows on the fire, triggering the flamethrower effect described by witnesses. Investigators retrieve and examine station logs from the day of the disaster. They want to analyze the movements of trains in and out to build a pattern of air movement up the escalator shaft. They work out that in the 10 minutes before the inferno, trains departing underground platforms would have pulled fresh air down the escalator shaft. This would not have had any major effect on the fire. But they discover that at 7:42, just 3 minutes before the fire erupted, everything changes. An eastbound Piccadilly line train pulls in. Seconds later, a westbound train arrives too. The combination of two trains arriving almost simultaneously has a dramatic impact on the airflow. It sends a huge blast of air up the escalator, the direction the fire traveled. It's a promising lead. To find out if it offers the key to the disaster, investigators have to calculate if the airflow was traveling fast enough to have a significant effect on the fire. They measure the airflow produced by tube trains and calculate that two trains, arriving one after the other, would make the airflow up the escalator travel at 3.25 meters per second. That's only 12 kilometers per hour, nowhere near fast enough to trigger the jet of flame. David Shillito and the team are no closer to explaining how an insignificant escalator fire mutated into a rampaging killer. They've ruled out terrorism, arson, and the effects of airflow. An exhaustive search of the escalator shaft can find nothing that might have acted as a superfuel on the blaze. The investigators desperately need some fresh thinking. They turn to one of England's most famous seats of learning, Oxford, and the budding science of computer modelling. Dr. Ian Jones and Suzanne Simcox are pioneering the use of the world's fastest supercomputers to predict heat flow through buildings such as nuclear reactors. Investigators hope their software might reveal whether something about the configuration of the King's Cross fire zone could have triggered the inferno. Simcox creates a precise computer model of King's Cross Underground Station and then starts a small, virtual fire. As it starts to spread, something odd happens. The fire starts to lie down and cling to the surface of the escalator steps, when basic physics dictates that it should burn straight up towards the ceiling. It's so bizarre that Simcox initially fears she's made an elementary mistake.
When we first showed some people, they did ask if I'd got gravity up the right way, which is possible in a computer model. You set which direction gravity's in. We went and checked again and found that we had got gravity the right way up.
There was no mistake. The fire continues to lie low on the escalator steps. Then within 30 seconds, it surges up the escalator at high speed. Just like the jet of fire eyewitnesses saw at King's Cross. The scientists are perplexed. It doesn't add up. It's an impossible fire. All they can tell investigators is that it appears something about the physical configuration of the escalator made the fire behave as it did. There's only one way to prove conclusively what it was. They must try to recreate the King's Cross fire for real. July 1988, 9 months after the disaster. 290 kilometers north of London, in the heart of the Derbyshire countryside, David Shillito and the team mount an ambitious experiment. In a field rented from a local farmer, they build a model of the Piccadilly line escalator and ticket hall using all the correct materials. They rig up a series of heat sensors and cameras. They're going to start a fire, and this time they will not intervene to put it out, whatever happens.
3, 2,
A technician sets light to the escalator in exactly the right spot. The investigation team and computer scientists watch anxiously. This could be the only chance to discover what caused the King's Cross fire. "6 minutes in, and the blaze is behaving like a normal wood fire, its flames standing up straight. At this rate, it could take up to 60 minutes for the test fire to reach the ticket hall. As the seconds tick by, it's beginning to look as though the computer model got it wrong. Investigators are staring defeat in the face. If the experiment proves a dead end, the mystery of the King's Cross Inferno may remain unsolved forever. The investigators are facing another dead end. Then, 7.5 minutes in, the fire dramatically changes. Rather than going straight up, the flames suddenly change direction. Now they lie down and start to cling to the wooden steps of the escalator, just like they did in the computer model. Temperature sensors reveal that the wooden steps directly above the fire are now heating up very fast. Within 20 seconds, the investigators record temperatures of 800 degrees Celsius. Seconds later, the flames erupt unstoppably up the wooden escalator and burst into the model of the ticket hall. They realize that not one, but two phenomena combine to create the King's Cross Inferno. The 30-degree incline of the escalator has the effect of making the flames lie down on the steps. And the sides of the escalator box the fire in, creating a channel or trench, which concentrates the heat and flames and prevents them escaping. As the fire spreads up the incline, it pushes before it an invisible blanket of heat and gases, which superheat a 20-meter stretch of wooden steps above. Around 10 seconds later, the superheated steps reach a critical temperature between 500 and 600 degrees Celsius and ignite. This creates the devastating jet of flame that surges so swiftly up the escalator shaft. It's a phenomenon that scientists had never witnessed before. The team names their discovery the trench effect. It's the final piece of the puzzle. Investigators can now understand the precise chain of events that triggered the King's Cross fire. What originally started the fire? What fueled its growth? And what triggered the giant jet of flame that engulfed the ticket hall and left 31 people seconds from disaster? Wednesday, November 18th, 1987. Towards the end of rush hour, a passenger riding up the Piccadilly line escalator drops a match. By chance, the match falls through a gap in the wooden steps and lands, still burning, on the rubbish-clogged grease of the escalator running track. 7:29 p.m. 16 minutes to catastrophe. As the fire takes hold beneath the escalator, commuter Philip Squire glimpses the glow. He tells a ticket collector, but when they look from the top, the 30-degree angle hides it from view. Two minutes to disaster. Firefighters arrive and assess the fire. They decide it should be easy to contain. What they don't know is that because of the trench effect, gases from the fire are invisibly superheating the wooden steps. 20 seconds to go. As Brody and fellow passengers step into the ticket hall, the superheated stretch of escalator spontaneously ignites. Disaster strikes. Flames surge up the wooden steps, traveling at 12 meters per second. A jet of fire erupts into the ticket hall with a heat output of 25 megawatts. That's as much energy as a jumbo jet uses during takeoff. "31 people caught up in the ticket hall inferno die from burns and inhalation of toxic smoke." 11 months after the disaster, the investigation team finally delivers its report. It concludes that the inferno's speed and scale were caused by the trench effect. It also ruled that all wooden escalators be replaced with metal within 9 months. London Underground started rigorously enforcing the smoking ban straight after the fire. It also went on to train its staff in the safest and quickest escape routes. Thanks to pioneering experimental work, fire teams around the world are now alert to the hazard posed by blazes on sloping surfaces. Their newfound knowledge will help save lives should such an inferno threaten again.